the Pacific Ocean, a mesmerizing dance of beauty, power, and unspeakable terror. Within it, many mysteries of the sea lie in wait. Some of these mysteries are surrounded by tales of harrowing glory or defeat, like the tale of the USS Conestoga. One of the top 10 unsolved maritime disasters of our age. When she left San Francisco, the Navy tug was bound for American Samoa via Pearl Harbor. Not long after leaving port, the USS Conestoga would vanish, leaving scant evidence of the events that befell her and her crew. An exhaustive search by the Navy, deploying every available vessel and aircraft, would rescue no souls, locate not a ship, and leave so many questions unanswered. For nearly a century, this mystery has remained unsolved. The loss of the vessel and her crew has left holes in the hearts of families, puzzled maritime historians, and inspired the public's imagination to wonder whatever happened to the USS Conestoga. NOAA's Office of National Marine Sanctuaries may have solved the Conestoga riddle. 2,000 miles from where the tug was suspected to have gone lost, an unexpected discovery in Greater Farallones National Marine Sanctuary is revealing clues as to the fate of the missing naval vessel. With new hope in solving this mystery, the closure sought for so long by the families of the loved and lost might finally be within reach. In 1904, the Maryland Steel Company in Baltimore, Maryland, completed construction on a ship that was likely destined to have an unremarkable career by maritime standards. Like most vessels of similar construction, the seagoing tug was the often overlooked workhorse of seaports and navies. At 170 feet in length, constructed as a supply mover for the Philadelphia and Reading Railroad, Conestoga served her initial owners well before being purchased by the Navy in 1917. It was then that she was refitted for minesweeping and fleet tending in service to her country at the latter part of the First World War. From this point on, her fate would be intertwined with that of her crew, a collection of men from across America, several of whom had never seen a day on the water before meeting her deck with their feet. They were young men like Seaman Second Class Charles Joseph Ballant from Passaic, New Jersey, who was only 16 when he enlisted in the Navy, or boatswain Harvey Herbert Reinbold of Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, a brother to at least 6 siblings. And you would also find Mess Attendant First Class Edward Wilson, one of the first African Americans to be allowed to serve on an American naval vessel. They would be led by Ernest Larkin Jones of Walnut Grove, Kansas.
He has to take this older fleet tug and take it across the Pacific, dropping off a few men at Pearl Harbor, and then to proceed to American Samoa, where she's going to become a station ship. An important job, basically the floating representation of the United States Navy in those waters.
Jones would sail the Conestoga from Norfolk, Virginia, to Mare Island, where she would undergo final preparations and repairs. And on March 25, 1921, she would push off toward Pearl Harbor. By mid-afternoon, she would clear the rocky entrance of the San Francisco Bay, likely with a barge in tow, and head out into the open waters of the Pacific. Steaming toward the horizon and out of sight of land, the ship and all her crew were never seen or heard from again.
Bob Schwimmer has a list, about as long as this arm, of sonar targets from a variety of surveys. In particular, we were working with a 2009 survey. It had a series of targets, some of which looked like they might be shipwrecks. We decided we'd go check those out.
One of the targets of interest was certainly a shipwreck, as it was revealed with the multi-beam survey. We had no historic record of a shipwreck of 170 feet in length. So we were very curious to investigate this site.
One of the most important parts of doing the work that we do in NOAA's Office of National Marine Sanctuaries is better understanding what's in those sanctuaries. Of course, when they're designated and created, you do research. You know, for example, with Farallones, that there's close to 400 shipwrecks out there. But knowing that they exist on a list or in a newspaper story dating back 100 years is very different than actually going out there and seeing, yes, there is a wreck, this is what's left of it, this is what it can tell us if we do archaeology, and this is how it has interacted with the marine environment and in some cases has become habitat.
But this is exciting to actually find a vessel, be able to identify the rig or the service of this vessel, and then do our detective work to try to piece together the puzzle and give her a name and tell her story.
There's still a sense of excitement, a little bit of impatience when you drop that robot in the water and it starts making its way down. Working on shallower sites means you can get there faster. When, in the case of the work in the Farallones, it's a matter of minutes. You're always watching, waiting, hoping that you can find the target that shows up on your sonar, and then suddenly there it is. Sometimes out of the darkness and the murk it appears. Sometimes you drop down and suddenly you are right there. There's a moment where you just go for a second and then you're keenly focused. You want to see exactly what it is. You're trying to soak up as much as you can, making observations, trying very hard not to blurt out, it's a this, it's a that.
First, that's what I was thinking.
Realizing that in many cases yours are the first eyes, since some of these things went down, to ever see them.
Our first dive on the site, we came up on the starboard side of the bow of the shipwreck, and it had a very distinct straight stem. My colleague, Dr. James Delgado, recognized the ship as a tugboat.
Of course, Bob was like, are you sure? Well, let's start looking. If it is, there are going to be other things that we'll find.
That's the top of the engine. Ambient.
Oh yeah, look.
Cylinder head. See? But what we're going to want to be looking for down below is traces of boilers as we start to move. We should be seeing at some stage a boiler and a steam chest. Life anytime. We're going to take a look today at the steam tug Hercules, which we think is pretty close to the tugboat that we just saw sitting down on the bottom off the gate during our Maritime Heritage Cruise. We're going to try to match up features from the wreck to the historic tugboat, because I suspect they date to about the same time period, and that'll be an important clue in trying to identify the tugboat wreck, but it also gives us an opportunity when we do some outreach and education to say, this thing on the bottom once looked like this. Let's go. What's missing on the vessel we've got on the bottom is all the superstructure, which in the tug on that we've got out there that's wrecked, this would all have been wood as opposed to this. On the other side of this bulkhead would be the engine, just as our engine is. When we were on the wreck and the ROV came in, we flew past the tow winch and we came right over and we stopped and we hovered right here, and we were looking straight down on the top of the engine of the wreck. And the shape of the engine is the same, as you can see. The cylinder placement is about the same. My guess is, being refreshed with Hercules, that we probably have a triple expansion.
So in comparison, this actually, seeing this vessel above water, it gives you a context of size of what. Because underwater, you're only looking at one portion of the ship at a time.
The more we looked at Hercules, I felt Bob, everybody began to better understand and began to reconstruct in our mind's eye the tug we saw on the bottom, from a wreck covered with marine growth into the tugboat it once had been. So our mission ended, and Bob and I had to pack up and quickly fly across the country to Maritime Heritage Conference, which happens every few years. It was in Norfolk, Virginia. There were tables, displays. One of them was the Navy's Fleet Tug Association. And as I stood there and looked at things, there was a model of a fleet tug. And I thought more and more, as Bob and I had discussed, maybe it's a military tug.
Ironically, the room that I stayed in overlooked the Norfolk Navy Yard. And I recall seeing tugs moving in and out, towing barges through the harbor there.
So the more I looked at this model, I said, it's gotta be a military tug.
So I started working through the newspaper accounts of missing tugboats off San Francisco.
And then my phone rang, and it was Bob who said, can you come up to my room?
And I was struck by this article out of the San Diego Union, 1921, about a tugboat, a military tugboat, USS Conestoga.
So he had brought the discs, the hard drives, with all the video footage, and he was going through it bit by bit. And as he did, he spotted something. And so when I came in, he said, what does that look like to you?
We had a historic image of the gunnery crew next to the 3-inch 50 caliber gun, very close up with the 2 sighting scopes, and continued reviewing the video. And as we got closer, there was the 3-inch 50 caliber gun. We certainly had a military tug, and it matched up perfectly with the image that we had from 1921.
No matter Conestoga's historic significance, whether it captured a headline or not, or what it did during the war, when that ship went missing, what made it important is that there were 56 guys on board who had families, people who cared about them, who wondered what had happened, and who never had an answer. As it became clear to us that this wreck was Conestoga, perhaps now, for their families, knowing where they were, this could provide closure.
Hi there. What an honor it is to meet you, Dr. Delgado.
Jim, please. It's so nice to meet you.
Diane.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
My pleasure. And this is Pam.
Hi,
Hi,
Pam.
Diane. Nice to meet you.
Same here.
And that's David.
Hi, David. I have a son named David. I won't forget that. Yes, stories go back to my earliest recollections. That's the only one I have. You have to pick that one up to see it. The only one I have of him holding my mother.
Oh.
So Aunt May made a christening dress, and I have it in my mother's handwriting that my mother wore it in that picture, and then she passed the same handmade christening dress down, which my 2 children wore. So life goes on, and there are traditions, and unfortunately a loss cut so many of those.
What I think happened is that they left the Golden Gate. They sailed into a storm. The winds were building to gale force. They had 30 to 40 knot winds. So the sea is building up. The wire on her towing machine, on her winch, is somewhat loose. It's not neatly wrapped, which suggests that if they were towing, they lost it, and they're starting to take on water. And at a certain stage, the engineers probably called up to him and said, we're in danger of sinking. And with that, then he has to make a decision. He probably figured they couldn't make it all the way back into the gate and into San Francisco Bay without going down. But close by, probably, are the Farallone Islands. And at that time, there's a Navy radio station there, and there's a lighthouse there. But it was the only chance they had. The tug is pointed directly at the island, almost directly at the lighthouse. And as if they just kept going, and they're making for it. And the sad reality is they were just a little better than 3 miles away when it looks like they lost the fight. And the sea just was too powerful.
My mother always thought he was a hero. That was just a void. And our family, and for my mother, a bigger void without her father. But I'm so thankful that it was found, that it can answer the biggest question our family has ever had. The fact that it's in a marine sanctuary seems more fitting. It's just natural, and that I know it won't be disturbed. Thank you. Thank you.
We'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Diane, thank
bless
you.
And you.
Bye-bye.
Yes, on the 23rd.
Yes, ma'am.
Bye-bye.
A wreck of some age, assumed with marine life, indeed speaking to the fact that it is in a sanctuary.
We have been given this great responsibility to share this story with the family members, the American public.
So this is my great uncle, Edward Wilson, who was my grandmother's brother.
Because it is a great story. These guys are the heroes. They went down with their ship while in service of the U.S. Navy.
Well, it was more of an opening than a closure because I found out about my great-great-grandfather.
Well, the ringing of the bells 56 times was quite spiritual and so fitting as a dedication at the end of this beautiful day.
You read something in a history book. You dive on a wreck. And there's certain emotions that go with that. But nothing compares to finding something like Conestoga. It's history as it should be. It's about individuals, it's about families. It's not big names, it's not headlines. It's people who, in this case, grew up hearing stories of a grandfather who just simply didn't come home one day. It's all about people, and it's how we can connect with people, and why we are, ultimately, no matter what branch we serve in, we are a government of the people, by the people, and for